morning, I'm Wendy Burke, and this is the CBC Morning Report for Friday, September 17th. In our top story, Barbados' isolation facilities for COVID-19 patients are almost maxed out. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kenneth George made the disclosure last night as he commented on the recent number of new patients and also on the 3 deaths from the virus over the last 2 days. Dr. George says overall, the situation is grim.
Our isolation is close to capacity. Our quarantine has many hundreds of primary contacts. We need to start to do the right thing. And therefore, I urge you that many of these deaths are what we would term in public health unwanted deaths. And I urge you to do a few things. There is too much mixing of people. I see it by myself. Bars, restaurants, and rum shops. The fellas have 1 or 2 drinks, and after that, the mask comes off. Persons are letting their guard down in families. We understand that families and households must be considered safe havens. But if your family has a lot of traffic and you don't know who is who in the family, we would advise you that in those circumstances, wear a mask. And finally, the message of vaccinations still adds an extra layer of protection. We have scaled up our responses and we are doing much more community and targeted vaccination interventions. Why? Because we would like to get to where the people are. We recognize that not everyone may have the option of coming to a central location. Therefore, this is sad news today that 4 citizens have indeed died over 3 days. The Ministry of Health obviously will extend sincere condolences to the family and friends of these individuals. But at least 2 of these individuals, this is unwanted deaths. We could be doing better.
Dr. George also says the 3 most recent deaths are still being investigated.
We are currently checking the vaccination status of these 3 individuals and will certainly report them to you when we have that information. What happens is when a patient presents in severe respiratory distress to the accident and emergency, we don't have their vaccination status at that time. So we have to go through back the records and find out the vaccination status. Persons are presenting to accident and emergency with low oxygen levels, and at that stage, it is extremely difficult to pull back.
And joining us on Morning Report this morning, we have Dr. Brian Larder. He is in England at this time, and virologist who is going to be speaking to us about the variants and the vaccines. Good morning to you, Dr. Larder. Yes, Dr. Larder has been in Barbados for some time looking at the pandemic and how it has been affecting us. He's now returned home, but he believes there's a lot more that can be done in terms of ensuring not only the vaccines are effective, but other measures. Okay, good morning to you, Dr. Larder.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm well. And what about yourself?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Okay, let's look at the variants. We have Delta, now we're hearing about Mu. What do we in the Caribbean need to be most concerned about in terms of these variants and them mutating?
Well, I think we have to realize that the variants have arisen because of natural selection as the infection has continued and been passed from person to person. This virus, when it originally was found in humans, wasn't a natural human virus and has adapted and over a process of just natural evolution over time. And what has happened is that the viruses that we see now are ones that are very good at replicating and spreading. And we saw that with Alpha back in Barbados in late December and January, February, with that wave of infection of an infectious variant. And now Delta is much more infectious than Alpha was. So it's good at spreading and it's good at infecting people. And when people are infected, they will breathe out and cough many times more virus particles than any other variant that's been seen before. So we have to be mindful that that's what the virus is evolving towards: more efficient replication, more efficient infection. But what we really need to be worried about now is, will the virus evolve towards efficient replication in the face of immunity and vaccines? And I think that's what we really have to be mindful about in the Caribbean.
Is that why we're looking now at the whole idea of the booster shots in other parts of the world, because of how this mutation is taking place?
Not necessarily. I think the booster shots are really being used because there's evidence now that after about 6 months of vaccination, particularly in elderly people and people with immune compromised situations, that the immunity that the vaccines have afforded can wane to a certain extent. And so the boosters are to try and increase that immunity back to where it was after the first two vaccines of hopefully over 90% protection.
Okay, I'm glad you spoke to the issue of immunity. Everyone is talking about having their territory, their country, reach herd immunity. How realistic is it really, given the anti-vaxxers, along with the hesitant ones, along with all the mis and disinformation that we're getting online?
Well, I think firstly, we have to understand that the Delta variant has been a complete game changer with this coronavirus pandemic. And most scientists now agree that herd immunity is going to be something that's going to be virtually impossible to achieve, no matter how many people are vaccinated. Now that might sound depressing, but it isn't really. It means that although people who are fully vaccinated can still or may get infected, they're certainly not going to be very ill or die from the infection. They have a 20 times less chance of becoming severely ill and dying if you're vaccinated rather than not vaccinated. So the whole concept of vaccination really is to protect people's well-being and to hopefully, as time goes on, decrease spread of the virus from person to person. But we still have to be mindful that, particularly with Delta, people can be infected if they're vaccinated and the virus can spread. And that's particularly the case with people who have single vaccinations. And I've noticed of yesterday's figures, over 26,000 people in Barbados have received one dose of vaccine, and they really need to make sure they get the second dose of vaccine for full protection against becoming severely ill from this infection.
Okay, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Report, Dr. Larder, and do continue to enjoy your morning.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Next on CBC Morning Report, updates on the COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome back to the Morning Report. As we told you earlier, 3 more Barbadians have died from COVID-19. An unvaccinated 97-year-old woman passed away on Wednesday after spending 4 days in isolation. Meanwhile, 2 males died yesterday. One was a 51-year-old with a comorbidity who was admitted to the Accident and Emergency Department at the QEH with low oxygen levels and was later incubated at Harrison Point. The other was a 93-year-old who was in secondary isolation at the Harrison Point Isolation Facility for 4 days. The vaccination status of both men is unknown. The total number of lives lost to the virus now stands at 56. Meanwhile, there are 71 new cases of COVID in Barbados. There were 2,132 tests conducted on Wednesday, and the new cases comprise 33 females and 38 males. 21 of them are under the age of 18. The number of people now in isolation is 828. And updating the vaccination drive to date, 96,715 people, or 35.7% of the population, have received their second dose and are fully vaccinated. Greater attention has to be paid to how people lime and engage in other social activities, even when in family settings. This is the caution from COVID-19 public advisor David Ellis.
A lot of the outings that people have been involved in, and there are quite a lot. A number of people who like to go and have a drink and have something to eat and lime with the boys and play dominoes. You know, this dominoes thing, that brings you into such close proximity to each other, and most of the time you have a drink in your hand, which means that you can't have on a mask. And then you leave there and you go back home. So these types of practices we need to watch.
Speaking during yesterday's TV8 public affairs program, Face It and Fix It, Ellis said the message communicated has to be clear in order to reach all, and the same message won't be applicable to all groups.
If somebody is looking for someone to come from somewhere and come up with all the answers associated with trying to fight COVID, then that person is asking for the impossible. There are people all over the world who are in the same position that we are in, where we have to come together and get a mix of skills so that we will be able to find the answers that suit our particular environment. There is a strategy which is evolving, one strategy in particular, but there is definitely a strategy also of trying to reach that community in different ways. And you cannot try to do so in just one way. There must be people-to-people contact as much as possible, but we also have to use technology as a means of trying to reach those people and to get feedback from them as much as possible. We need the feedback from the public.
The Pan American Health Organization says the Americas region has reached a new milestone in vaccinations against COVID-19. Director Dr. Carissa Etienne is pleased with the development.
More than 30% of people in Latin America and the Caribbean have now been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Indeed, several countries have already vaccinated more than half of their eligible populations. But we also know that coverage remains much lower in many countries. Just over 5% of people have been vaccinated in Jamaica, fewer than 4% in Nicaragua, and less than 1% in Haiti. And from what we can see, vaccine inequity is only getting worse. See, while some countries struggle to get enough doses to protect health workers and their priority populations, more than 3.5 million booster shots have already been administered in our region. Some for immunocompromised persons, but in several countries, some for the general population.
A majority of Jamaicans say monetary incentives could not influence them to take the COVID-19 vaccines. The information contained in a recent poll. They're also divided on the government's cash incentive program for seniors. We have a report from TVJ.
In March, the government announced a conditional cash transfer program for senior citizens where people aged 60 and over receive a $10,000 incentive after being vaccinated. Prime Minister Andrew Holness said the program was important to tackle vaccine hesitancy among priority groups. In the latest RJR Gleaner Don Anderson poll, Jamaicans were asked their views on the cash incentive.
The largest single response was from 42% of the persons interviewed who said, that's not a good idea. It's not a good idea, okay? But against that, we had 35% who thought it was a good idea. So when the numbers are so close, you'd like to conclude that the views are mixed.
The government is now trying to work with private sector companies to provide incentives as a way of encouraging people to get vaccinated. It's being done the world over. In the United States, California offered citizens a chance to win over $100 million in cash prizes if they took the jab. In Ohio, $1 million was also up for grabs. Jamaicans were asked whether they would take the vaccine if they were offered money. The majority, 76%, said no.
3 out of every 4 persons that were interviewed said no, they would not take the vaccination for money. In other words, that's not going to be my motivation. As 24% said, yes, give me the money, I'll take it.
The country is in the third wave of the virus, with the latest positivity rate close to 50%, way above the World Health Organization recommendation of 5% or lower.
The Italian government has approved some of the strictest anti-COVID measures in the world, making it obligatory for all workers either to show proof of vaccination, a negative test, or recent recovery from infection. The new rules will come into force from October 15 in the latest effort by Prime Minister Mario Draghi's broad coalition to persuade people to get inoculated and blunt contagion in one of the countries worst hit by the virus.
The Italian government is reportedly taking things even further and making its COVID passport mandatory for all workers. That's according to the Reuters news agency. From October 15th, employees in both the public and private sector will need to show proof of vaccination, a negative test, or recent recovery from infection. It's meant to persuade more people to get vaccinated. Italy was one of the worst hit countries in Europe, with more than 130,000 deaths recorded.
The Green Pass is an important tool to deal with this serious situation. In such a serious situation, we need effective solutions.
In my opinion, it's not fair, because if I'm a free citizen, I can decide whether or not to get a Green Pass. When there's an obligation, we no longer live in a democracy, but in a dictatorship, so I do not agree.
Time now for a preview of what's coming up on Morning Barbados, and for that we say good morning to Pearson Boone.
Good morning, Wendy. Good morning, everyone. When you join me at 6:30 for Morning Barbados, we ask the question, what can we do as a region to ensure water security? Global Water Partnerships Caribbean will come by. They'll answer that question and a whole lot more. And can you imagine opening your eyes today and acknowledging that you're 103 years old today, and then what do you do to celebrate? We'll tell you who that person is, and perhaps she'll be turning the pages of the book on her life. We'll share that with you as well. And in our Bajan of our segment, we'll meet a Barbadian who is residing in Toronto, Canada, who has been collecting all things Bajan to share with her friends there. That's just a little bit of what you can experience when you join us at 6:30 for Morning Barbados. Until then, it's back to you, Wendy.
Thanks, Pearson. We'll see you at the bottom of the hour. Time for another break, and we return with more news. The majority of public schools are just about ready for the new school year, scheduled to begin on Monday. That's according to the presidents of the associations representing principals at both levels. CBC's Lisa Brooms reports.
When school resumes next Monday, teaching will be completely virtual because of the COVID-19 pandemic and, in particular, the spread of the Delta variant. Preparations are well underway, and President of the Barbados Association of Principals of Public Secondary Schools, Stephen Jackman, says at his level they're 90% ready. He did, however, identify some potential challenges.
Our problems are going to be the first formers coming in, because we are processing information all this week, trying to make sure we can start with them sometime next week. And then it is those persons who did CXC who are looking to move on to the K8 level. While the ones in their second year can restart straight away, we still have a process to go through waiting on results. And we're going to have to come up with a methodology that gets them in quicker. If not, they will lose probably 4, 5, 6 weeks.
Mr. Jackman acknowledges that while the online platform hasn't been easy for either teachers or students to navigate, they're all getting better.
We've made the mistake of assuming that they were digital natives. What we're learning is that they are social media natives. But using learning tools and production tools like Word and Excel and those things, we have had to spend some time getting them used to using them in the Google Suite. But they are slowly reaching the point where they understand, and each stage of the lockdown they get better at it. Teachers are also getting better at it. We are learning that there are more tools available for us to use to make lessons more exciting, more interactive, and to involve the students more in the process.
Mr. Jackman's primary school counterpart, Dr. Hyacinth Harris, says they're in preparation mode. She says principals are working on schedules and teachers on their plans. The only challenge so far is securing an adequate number of devices.
Those that they were using last year have been damaged. Some parents are requesting devices. New parents are requesting devices, and therefore their numbers are increasing. Some principals have indicated that with the new students that have registered, they will definitely need some devices, and therefore they are asking the Ministry of Education to provide them.
With regards to making up for lost time, Dr. Harris says the plan is to ascertain where the students are academically.
The schools must conduct assessments, diagnostic tests to determine where their children are, where the students are, and to put measures in place to ensure that the students, any deficiencies that they are experiencing are rectified.
In addition, the APP's president says the Education Ministry is working on new syllabi for the schools, and the principals are awaiting their rollout.
There's a change policy at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital as it concerns the staffing gaining entry to the building. Some staff members at the hospital have been expressing concern about the length of time it was taking them to get into the facility to do their work on Wednesday. Executive Chairman of the QEH, Juliet Vino Sutherland, says employees had expressed their concern in a video that went viral, which showed a long line of staff outside the Martindales Road facility.
The wave of the pandemic has the potential to seriously impact the patient and staff of our lone tertiary institution. Our management team has been exploring a number of initiatives to keep the hospital from being overwhelmed by COVID outbreaks. One attempt was initiated yesterday with poor outcomes as seen from the video circulated. Long lines were experienced trying to enter the facility by having staff go through a questionnaire. The board met last night and evaluated the initiative and determined that it was too disruptive. We have immediately discontinued the initiative and recommended that alternative measures be implemented at the department level to ensure staff do not start work unwell or do notify us of high-risk contacts at home or in the community. It should not be so difficult to enter the work premises. We are indeed sorry for the inconvenience experienced by staff and we will remain focused on our goal of keeping the hospital safe for patients, staff, and our visitors.
In sports, a half-century from Mignon du Preez was the highlight for South Africa women as they secured a fourth straight victory over the West Indies women in the CG Insurance ODI series at the Viv Richards Stadium in Antigua last evening. Sent into bat, South Africa women were held to 1. In the Lesser Antilles today, after a few brief early morning showers, it will become mostly sunny after mid-morning. And tonight, fair to occasionally cloudy with a few scattered light showers. And now for a look at our international cities. That's it for now. We now join Pearson Bowen for Morning Barbados.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning, Barbados, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, 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 morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, morning, Barbados, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados, good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
Indeed, good morning to you wherever you are. Welcome all and sundry to Friday the 17th of September 2021. It's the start of the weekend. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Pearson Bowen. To those of you in Barbados watching us on your TV screens, grateful as always for your company. And around the world on our social media pages, on YouTube and on Facebook. Glad you could be with us today. Now today, we'll introduce you to Carla Nichols, who is the genius behind Bespoke Studios, crafting and creating a number of contemporary art pieces using natural resources. We'll talk to her about that experience. Also, we'll begin to tease you a little bit about Lux Carnival Escape Weekend. What's that about? I know your eyebrows just popped up. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Plus, we'll update you on what's happening with Clean Up Barbados, the effort that should have started this week, now postponed, and how you can still volunteer to be a part of it. But let's get started by looking at us being a water-secure region. We're happy to be joined this morning by Gabrielle Lee Look, who is the Communications Officer for Global Water Partnership Caribbean. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Pearson, and thank you so much for having me on.
It's our pleasure indeed. Thank you for coming through. What is Global Water Partnership Caribbean and what's its vision?
Okay, so let me just to set some context. So Global Water Partnership Caribbean is actually one of 13 regional water partnerships of the Global Water Partnership. Our vision is for a water secure Caribbean, right? So Global Water Partnership are the core of our work, we work to support Caribbean countries in a sustainable management and better management of their water resources. And we do that through several ways in terms of advocating for an integrated cross-sectoral approach to water resources management that involves stakeholders at all levels, from the policy level, involving youth, involving persons from tourism, health, agriculture, all levels. We see that this is a way in which water security in the region is a possibility.
For anyone watching today, they're asking us about what is water security. We think water security means as much rain as we could possibly get, which goes into our aquifers and comes out through our tap. But that is not simply what you're talking about.
No. So just in simple terms, water security is a process. Ideally, that would be the most ideal thing that we can achieve, because the reality is that water is everyone's business. But it is a process, and the reality is that that process must involve everyone. So as I mentioned, it's not just the policymakers and decision makers talking to each other. It's not just agriculture doing what they're doing. Everyone, to achieve water security, it must take an integrated approach of all these sectoral, all of these sectors coming together, young people being involved, community members. Everyone has a role in water security and achieving it, but it is a process.
A lot of times we look at water security as the responsibility of the end user. The less you use, the more secure we become. And we don't necessarily look at it at how do we farm water, eat sufficient water, so that we do also ensure security. What's the equation that Water Secure Caribbean is looking at?
So in terms of our equation, as I said, it is a process. It's an enduring issue. And the reality is that throughout the region, so even reaching water security is still a long way away. Right? It's a process not just about advocating to policymakers, but it's about raising awareness. Right? The man on the street or the woman on the street needs to understand the importance of how water scarcity affects them. So Global Water Partnership Caribbean is able to raise awareness, build capacity of stakeholders at all levels in terms of training on water resources management. We're also able to share and create knowledge. So for example, the Global Water Partnership Caribbean is recognizing that obviously water is everyone's business, and there are stakeholders at all levels that need to be engaged in this process for this to really be a reality. So we develop various knowledge products at all levels, from policy briefs to we recently launched a children's book targeted at kids, letting them know what is really water security and what is their role, empowering them to be water change makers. So it is a process.
And I'm glad you said it, because oftentimes, we want to see tangibles. If we don't see tangibles, then for us it doesn't happen. It's not happening. And part of what you're saying is that you do, through publication of books and papers and having meetings, you're moving the process forward in raising the awareness that how each of us would impact on water security. What about the young people? Because continuity of this effort is also going to be critical. What are you doing at that level, the young people, to ensure that we can sustain and maintain water security?
I love the fact that you asked that question, because Global Water Partnership Caribbean, since inception, even when we were established as far back as 2004, we have recognized that young people, young professionals, young water professional youth, they are critical to the process of realizing water security. They are not just the future, they are the present. And the reality is that young people are going to inherit the development challenges of the Caribbean, of the region, of the world, water being one of the major ones. So they need to be brought to the decision-making table now and involved in dialogue. So as you mentioned that, GWP Caribbean actually recently launched its first ever Water Academy for youth. And that is a direct response in terms of involving and engaging young people between the ages of 20 to 35 years in the Caribbean that have an interest in providing solutions to water security, water issues. And that academy actually was launched in July and has taken off. And it's a very intense program, which is actually building the capacity of these young future leaders or actual leaders in their rights in water resources management.
And what's been the response? How well subscribed has it been? What are some of the stories coming out of it?
So the Water Academy for Youth, GWPCW, was actually launched in July. we had an overwhelming response to the program. There were like over 100 submissions of persons applying. It was a very competitive program, and we actually only were able to select about 30 persons to be part of that cohort. But the response has been really, really good. And over the past 3 months, these young people between the ages of 20 to 35 from over 12 Caribbean countries have not just been learning about water resources management, they have been being built in their capacity in terms of storytelling on water, how to change people's minds and hearts as it relates to water. These are some of the stories that came out of that training session that they've developed. They learned about business development and entrepreneurship, developing concept notes and project proposals as it relates to water. So it has been a very hands-on experience in terms of really building their capacity in this area.
What is the response though at the regional level? You know, there's CARICOM and they're the leaders, they're the ones who effect the change. What's been the response at that level to the efforts of a Global Water Partnership Caribbean? I'm sure you're familiar with the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, which is actually part of CARICOM, and they are one of our strategic partners and actually one of our major collaborators in the GWPC Water Academy for Youth. So they have always played a part in terms of our role, not just in water resources management, but bringing in that aspect of building climate resilience in the Caribbean water sector. So they have been very involved, particularly the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, in our work, and actually involved as one of the main collaborators in our Water Academy for Youth. So there has been that partnership in terms of not just water security, because when we talk about water security, there are all other related factors, and we talk about climate change and the impacts of that on water. So we're looking for new modalities, we're looking for new technologies, we're looking at different ways, because in the Caribbean primarily we've depended a lot simply on rainfall. But there's desalination, there are all sorts of other forms that one can do to raise security in water. Is that also part of the discussions from Global Water Partnership Caribbean?
Oh, definitely. Something as simple as you mentioned, the reality is that something that is rainwater harvesting, which is something that has been existing in the region for years. Global Water Partnership Caribbean actually has an online rainwater harvesting toolbox that anybody can go on and actually see how they can use water sustainably, because the reality is that in various Caribbean countries, there are communities that do not receive a regular supply of water. So there are ways in which you can use modern rainwater harvesting systems. This is just a simple example to have an additional source of water in terms of when communities are really water stricken. So that's just one of the many examples.
There's also a contest, I'm told, that you're running. Well, I call it a contest, an opportunity for people to tell their water stories and for people to assess those water stories as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Actually, that competition is related to the GWPC Water Academy for Youth. One of the training sessions within the academy was actually storytelling on water, which I mentioned. So one of the assignments that the cohort had, these 30 young people from across the region, was actually developing stories. So they went through this rigorous training session where they learned the foundations of good storytelling. And we decided, wow, there are all these amazing stories coming out of this storytelling session that they've built their capacity. Why not make it more visible? So we gave the cohort the option, those who had received feedback on their stories, we gave them the option of submitting their stories into something called the GWPC Way Story Awards. And these are 12 submissions. They were done individually and as groups representing about at least 12 different countries. And it's really a way of sharing knowledge, but in a way that could engage everyone. You know, it's stories that are that can change minds and really create awareness about what is happening in community. And there's actually one of the stories is submitted. It's actually based in a community in Barbados. So
yes,
that's how the competition came about.
Barbados is one of the 12. There's Barbados, Belize, Curacao, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Kitts and Nevis, Suriname and Trinidad and Tobago. Those are the 12 and those are the stories. Now what's interesting is that when you go on, folks, to check those stories out, you're not just learning about ourselves, we're learning about what also is happening in other areas in the Caribbean, the 12 countries we just listed. And so we get to see the differences, but we also get to see the similarities. We also get to see the solutions being espoused and practiced in other places as well. So where can we go online to view these stories and also to vote?
You head directly to our website. That's the easiest way, www.gwp-caribbean.org, or just search GWP Caribbean. We should be the first hit you get. As soon as you go onto the website, it's the first thing you're going to see about voting for your People's Choice Award for these stories.
All right, so gwp-caribbean.org, or you can go onto Facebook at GWP Caribbean, or on Instagram, GWP_water. And those are the places you go. And when you do, for the People's Choice Award, as you just saw on your screen, you click and you vote. You watch, you vote. You listen, you vote. And you can vote can we vote as often as we like? Can we vote many times within a 24-hour span? How does it work?
Definitely. So voting stops on September 20th. And what I want to point out, however, is that the People's Choice Award for these stories is the only award that's going to be determined by public votes. So there are going to be other awards among in terms of the stories that are listed on the website, but it's going to be determined by a panel. So this is your choice to go, engage, watch, and listen, as you said, and you have up until September 20th at midnight, AST Barbados time, to vote. And you can vote as many times as you want, yes.
Good, glad to hear that, because we can do this, Barbados. And not necessarily being biased, but we can do this, Barbados. Listen, Gabrielle Lee, look, we want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. We wish you all the best, really, because it's such a critical area of how we exist in the Caribbean, looking at water security, not just simply at water scarcity alone, but how can we now secure enough potable water that we can continue to live and exist, as water is such a central part of living. So thank you for you and the work of Global Water Partnership Caribbean. We want to encourage everyone to go online to gwp-caribbean.org, read the stories, listen to the stories, watch the stories, and vote for the People's Choice Award, and wish you only the very best going forward. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for Mornin Barbados and seeing the value of promoting water security.
You're very welcome indeed. Mornin Barbados will continue with much more right after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We are 14 and a half minutes away from the hour of 7 o'clock today, September the 17th. Today, September the 17th, is the birthday of one of the dames of Barbados, an educator in her own right. But when you see her, you see an outstanding person. And so we want to join today in celebrating her birthday, and we're inviting now Hazel Lindo Carrington, who is the daughter-in-law, and Mark Skinner, who is the part of the Maryville Preparatory Old Scholars Association's Facebook page. Good morning, both of you. Let's see if we get them on the screen in just a moment. We're celebrating today the birthday of Dame Avacine Caesaretta Carrington. And you do recall, I remember well, when she celebrated her significant milestone, her 100th birthday, and we saw her, we were stunned about how stately, how very well kept she has been. And so let's see if we get them on the screen. There they are. Good morning, both of you. Hazel and Mark, welcome.
Welcome, thank you.
Good. Hazel, you have the honor of being the daughter-in-law, so you know her even more intimately. And so today is her 103rd birthday, and really, on behalf of all of us, please remember to convey our congratulations to her. But you've put together now a book called Simply Teacher, and it says so much simply in those two words. What does it mean to you?
Good morning, Pearson. Question, because you broke up. Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm saying that Simply Teacher says so much in simply those two words. And as the daughter-in-law of the one whose birthday it is today, what does it mean to you to be living literally in her shadow with her and to be a part of her life experience as well, and to compile this book called Simply Teacher? We seem to be having a bit of a challenge with Hazel's. So, Mark, I'll turn to you because you are part of this one who went to school at the Maryville Preparatory. You've known her. You've been a part of her class. Tell me what your memories are of Dame Avicine.
Well, Pearson, as we like to refer to her by her own admission, she prefers Mrs. C for her children. And I can tell you the foundation was laid solidly for many of us in Barbados at Maryville Preparatory, or as we used to know it as Mrs. Carrington's. And honestly, I mean, it has resulted in having friendships that have lasted nearly, well, no, I won't say how many years, but a lot of years.
Yes.
And she has produced, I mean, you name it, Pearson. We have from taxi operators, politicians, doctors, lawyers, a family of engineers. You name it, Pearson, we could go on. We could go on forever.
What was it like? Because I didn't go to Maryville, but you did. So what was it like sitting in the classroom at Maryville?
Well, I won't hold it against you, Pearson. I mean, everybody can go to Maryville. So. But honestly, I would say, and I even made mention of this in the book as well, that there was love, but it was not love as you know, it was love in terms of instruction and discipline, and the lessons learned in terms of how to command yourself in front of your friends, and you have respect for the teachers, which was a given. In those days, you didn't play, but also teaching you to have respect for yourself.
And that's such an important lesson to learn. And so together, you've come together, you have now a Facebook page to celebrate the fact that you were there. And what does Mrs. Carrington, Mrs. C, mean today to you, Mark?
Oh gosh, I try my best not to get teared up because honestly, I mean, Mrs. Carrington has been, I mean, a pillar of our, like, they have been our backbone of our upbringing. And in fact, over the years, I mean, mind you, she's 103 today. She has slowed down a bit. I believe it's strictly because of the pandemic, because we would see Mrs. Carrington on the road. We would see her at AgroFest. We would see her at functions. And everywhere we saw her, Miss Carrington can remember you by your name, your face. There was no getting away.
Yes, that must be so, so important. Then the day that she was actually awarded a dame, she's now known as Dame Avicine Carrington. You know, if you were me, I would be bouncing the walls to think that my teacher is now recognized as Dame Avicine. What does it mean to you?
Oh, we were totally over the moon with that. Both the Maryvillites here in Barbados and overseas, we got in so many group calls and congratulations. There were shouts all through. And we have some people from Maryville in some pretty high up positions. We're talking in the UN, and there was noise being kept about the success and how Mrs. Carrington was being honored, honestly.
Yes. Were you a part of the book Simply Teacher in the process?
I did offer a few anecdotes and some stories because honestly, these stories alone, and of course now it's all right to say that we've had these lovely stories, but we got cognizant that these are pillars of our society, and some of these stories, I think you'll have a problem listening to a magistrate after, you know, what he used to do. But every time we have our reunions and in the past, I mean, it has been story after story.
Wow, I can well imagine the life of Avicine Carrington by Hazel Lindo Carrington, putting it all together, but gathering the stories. And is there any one story that you feel safe to share with us this morning that we can find in the book?
Oh dear. In the book, I leave it for the folks. The ones in the book have been properly censored. But there's just one more that I didn't release, and I had to get permission on this one. And just quickly, Let's call the gentleman Lawrence. Lawrence was bird crazy, and at Miss Carrington's school, there used to be a lot of wild pigeons that used to be landing all around. Of course, you couldn't even think about bringing to school a gutter or throwing rocks, but Lawrence decided he wanted to get one of these pigeons, so Lawrence set what is called a downfall, and this is on top of the school roof. Lawrence gets an excuse to go to the bathroom in class from Miss Carrington, and I can look up above my head through the clear, there was like a see-through galvanized clear sheet, and I can see the outline of Lawrence on the roof going to this downfall. It doesn't end there, Pearson. We are telling the fellas in the class, don't look up because you can't let the girls see. You'll get rattled very easily. And then all of a sudden we hear a lot of fluttering, and Mrs. Carrington looks up above her head, not realizing. So we say, oh, maybe the birds are fighting. Then it is followed by a slide and an oomph. Lawrence returns to class about 5 minutes later, and I'm there picking the mahogany leaves and the twigs out of the back of Lawrence. And it's like, you get the bird? You got the bird.
Mark, you're quite a storyteller. You're a very good storyteller, I'm telling you. Well done. Well done indeed. Do you get a chance pretty often to drive through the area still and look at that building and think, hey, that's where I went to school. It's so unfortunate it had to close.
Oh, yes.
Tell me the emotions that overcome you.
It was really sad. Actually, I was hoping that my daughters would have been able to go there as well. But this was in, I think, September 2010. We realized that the school was closing. And the thing that really struck me the most, I could imagine us as children hanging on this gate, this towering gate that we used to just be draped under. And this is now hip height. And all of these large fences and so on that used to give you so much trouble to hop over that we actually used to slide under. You realize these things were really small.
I get the same sense whenever I return to my school as well. You know, everything changes, but there's certain things that would remain the same. And if you were to talk to your daughters today about your experience at Maryvale, tell me what you say to them.
I'm sorry, I missed that one.
No, I said when you talk to your daughters today about your experiences at Maryvale and what that level of education that you would have received while there, tell me what you say.
To be quite honest, I don't think my daughters know that I actually did a lot of school. I think they're more focused on the stories and, you know, the things that Daddy used to get away with, I guess, as a means of saying, well, you know what, if Daddy did that, well, he can't really put no pressure on me to be decent. But there are scholars, and they do understand the foundation that is laid. Now, it may not seem important at that point in time, but you build upon that going forward.
Have you had a chance in recent time to speak with Dame Avicine?
I believe the last conversation would have been at, I think, last year's. We had a virtual event online. So we brought in students from all over the world, and you know we had our conversations with her, and Miss Carrington went through everyone one by one. It must have been exhausting because even though, you know, doing this online thing, it isn't quite as easy as people portray it to be.
Yes, you're quite right on that. We're trying to get Hazel back on, you know, Hazel who authored the book in recognition of her mother-in-law, Dame Avicine Carrington, you know, but she's been having some connection issues, and it's so unfortunate because I'd love to hear a little bit more about her experience as well. Was she also, Hazel, a member of the school, do you know?
I am not sure. I know other family members were, but this was, you know, as I said, I was in two separate parts at that time when they would have been there, honestly.
How else would you think that Barbados should recognize the contribution of Dame Avicine?
I honestly, it would be, I was actually thinking and going over it, if it was possible to have the building listed as, I don't know, I'm not sure the historical significance of it in terms of the Barbados National Trust, but certainly I would love to see that property preserved as it was back in the day. And we've had some discussions, but you know, it's a coming together to decide that this property should be maintained.
That sounds like a great idea. Let's see if we can get Hazel back on. I believe she might be back on, and we don't want to lose her connection. Hazel, good morning again to you.
Good morning, Pearson.
All right, good. We are there now. So the book is called Simply Teacher. Tell us about the book.
Simply Teacher, the title is the answer to the question to Dame Avis, what is your legacy and how do you want to be remembered? I must tell you that when I asked her, what is your legacy? She said dismissively, because she's very humble, what legacy what? And we were even thinking that that may make a good title for the book. So simply teacher is the way in which Dame Avis would like to be remembered. The book really chronicles her life and especially her contribution to early childhood education and primary education in Barbados. And the story is told against the backdrop of the history of the development of education in Barbados. And since my major is sociology, of course, there's also the social context, especially as it relates to provision for boys and girls that would have seen a change from limited access to females to the crowning, if you will, of Barbados's first female prime minister.
Dame Avisine is 103 years old today, so she's lived a full life. She's lived a lot of experiences as well. We've read about in history books. She was a part of the history too. And as I was reading the brief about the book, you know, to the names of the people with whom she would have interacted, the people who we revere today, after whom buildings were called, it must be stunning for you to really have been able to compile all of that and to recognize that this woman is no ordinary woman.
Indeed, I must share with you that the idea for the book came from my husband Ian, for whom the school was founded. He was a miserable little boy and he would cry behind his mom every morning before she left for work at the then St. Giles Boys School. And she was torn, you know, so she decided to give up what would have been a secure job at the time and start her own school in 1959.
And so the legend has lived on, and so she lives on today. I want you to convey our congratulations to her on her 103rd birthday. Yes. Where can people go from today to get a copy of this book, Simply Teacher, to learn more about this stunning lady, Dame Avisine Carrington?
I knew that question was coming. We're not quite ready yet. Before the end of the day, a hard copy proof will be on my desk, and I've been assured by COT that in about 2 weeks, but we will use all platforms to make that information available. And I would also like to acknowledge Mr. Skinner. You know, I got a lot of primary sources, and he was one of them. I interviewed students and parents and teachers and friends of the school, etc. And instead of just filling out a questionnaire, Mark Skinner wrote me some anecdotes that you will find in that book. And I want to thank him publicly. And I also advised him that whatever he is doing, he should stop doing and become an author.
He's a very good storyteller, I'm telling you. I totally agree with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, Mark.
Well done. Hazel Lindo Carrington, I want to thank you, the author, the daughter-in-law, the woman behind this outstanding Barbadian Dame Avisine, indeed, and the book Simply Teacher. Thank you. And Mark Skinner, one of those who still reveres her very much indeed, and the admin behind the Facebook page for the Maryvale Preparatory School on Facebook. Thank both of you for coming through. In 2 weeks' time, we will be hopefully getting a copy of that book in our hands, and we can all turn the pages and read more about this outstanding Barbadian who celebrates her 103rd birthday today. Thanks both of you for joining us.
And thanks for having us.
You're very welcome.
Have a good morning.
Likewise. It's now first, and then when we're back, Wendy Burke will have the news for us.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
And as promised, here's Wendy Burke with the news. Wendy.
Thank you, Pearson. Barbados' isolation facilities for COVID-19 patients are almost maxed out. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kenneth George made the disclosure last night as he commented on the recent number of new patients and also on the 3 deaths from the virus over the last 2 days. Dr. George says overall the situation is grim.
Our isolation is close to capacity. Our quarantine has many hundreds of primary contacts. We need to start to do the right thing. And therefore, I urge you that many of these deaths are what we would term in public health unwanted deaths. And I urge you to do a few things. There is too much mixing of people. I see it by myself. Bars, restaurants, and rum shops, the fellas have 1 or 2 drinks, and after that, the mask comes off. Persons are letting their guard down in families. We understand that families and households must be considered safe havens. But if your family has a lot of traffic and you don't know who is who in the family, we would advise you that in those circumstances, wear a mask. And finally, the message of vaccinations still adds an extra layer of protection. We have scaled up our responses and we are doing much more community and targeted vaccination interventions. Why? Because we would like to get to where the people are. We recognize that not everyone may have the option of coming to a central location. Therefore, this is sad news today that 4 citizens have indeed died over 3 days. The Ministry of Health obviously will extend sincere condolences to the family and friends of these individuals. But at least 2 of these individuals, this is unwanted deaths. We could be doing better.
Now, of those 3 latest Barbadians that died from COVID-19, the first was an unvaccinated 97-year-old woman who passed away on Wednesday after spending 4 days in isolation. Then 2 males died yesterday. One was a 51-year-old with a comorbidity who was admitted to the Accident and Emergency Department at AQEH with low oxygen levels and was later incubated at Harrison Point. The other was a 93-year-old who was in secondary isolation at the Harrison Point Isolation Facility for 4 days. The vaccination status of both men is unknown. The total number of lives lost to the virus now stands at 56. The Italian government has approved some of the strictest anti-COVID measures in the world, making it obligatory for all workers either to show proof of vaccination, a negative test, or recent recovery from infection. The new rules will come into force on October 15.
The Italian government is reportedly taking things even further and making its COVID passport mandatory for all workers. That's according to the Reuters news agency. From October 15th, employees in both the public and private sector will need to show proof of vaccination, a negative test, or recent recovery from infection. It's meant to persuade more people to get vaccinated. Italy was one of the worst hit countries in Europe, with more than 130,000 deaths recorded.
The Green Pass is an important tool to deal with this serious situation. In such a serious situation, we need effective solutions.
In my opinion, it's not fair because if I'm a free citizen, I can decide whether or not to get a green pass. When there's an obligation, we no longer live in a democracy, but in a dictatorship, so I do not agree.
In sports, a half-century from Mignon du Preez was the highlight for South Africa women as they secured a 4th straight victory over West Indies women in the CG Insurance ODI series at the Viv Richards Stadium in Antigua last evening. Centenarian, South Africa women were held 185 for 6 off their 50 overs, with Dupes scoring 65 not out inclusive of 5 fours. Captain Anissa Mohammed grabbed And it's back to you now, Pearson, for Morning Barbados.
Wendy, thank you. Our time is 8.5 minutes after 7 o'clock. We'll take a break, and when we're back, it will be time for you to answer today's Crumbs question of the day.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Right through to 3 p.m. So which of those Crumbs locations, which of them are opened on Sundays from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.? Which Crumbs locations are opened on Sundays from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.? It's tough. Good morning to you. Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's time to rise and shine.
Good morning. How are you?
Hi, good morning. I'm doing well today. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I am fabulous.
Oh, wonderful. Where are you watching from?
St. Michael.
St. Michael. What's your answer for me?
Listen, I'm gonna mail again.
I know.
But I'm not so sure.
What's your answer?
You know, like, even the had the COVID and stuff, and the locations were closed, and only certain locations were open on Sunday.
So what's your answer?
I'm gonna try 4.
So what's your answer?
4.
So what's your answer?
4.
You see, I didn't ask you how many. I asked you which Crumbs locations. You know, you're here right this morning, you know, St. Michael.
I can't hear what for you.
Thanks for trying, though. Have a good day. Thank you very much. 228-5562 or 228-5563. Which Crumbs locations are opened on Sundays 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.? That's what I'd like to know from you. I tell you, it's going to be a tough one. So let's see if you get it right today. Which Crumbs locations are open on Sundays 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.? So yep, there are some Crumbs locations which are opened on Sunday 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. But so I want to know from you which ones. Tell me the names. Tell me the locations. Which ones are opened on Sundays from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.? Crumbs Bakery. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
Hi. What parish are you watching from?
St. Michael's, please.
Go with your answer, girl. Go ahead.
Eagle Hall.
That's it?
Yes, is it the older at Eagle Hall?
Maybe, but I'm looking for many more.
All right, well, Crumbs outlet opens from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Eagle
Which
Hall,
ones?
St. Michael's.
So that's your answer? Final
Yeah.
answer? Not enough. Not enough. Thanks, Trent O'Gill. Quick, folks. 228 time is ticking by. 228-5562. And it's the weekend. We want you to enjoy some Crumbs baked products this weekend. 228-5562 or 228-5563. Which Crumbs locations are open on Sundays 7 to 3? Good morning. Hello. Hello.
Hello,
Hi, what parish are you watching from?
St. Philip.
All right, don't listen to the TV. Do not listen to the TV. When you call your mother, you don't listen to the TV. You listen to the phone. So listen on the phone to me now. So tell me, which Crumbs locations are open on Sundays 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.?
Mylar's Hill, Eagle Hall, Wildy's, Oystons, Fairchild Street, Fairview, Spikestown.
So you said to me, call them again.
Spikestown, Fairview, Fairchild Street, Oystons, Wildy's, Eagle Hall, Mylar's Hill.
Nobody else?
No.
What do you mean no? As a matter of fact. You sure nowhere else?
I think that is all.
I want to give this to her. Folks,
Unless
I'm going to give this.
you
Go
open
ahead.
at 6 Words.
Pardon me?
The new location at 6 Words?
No, don't go there. Don't go there.
Okay.
I see here on my script, airport. Is there Crumbs Bakery at the airport? There must be, I believe, probably in the departure lounge. And not that many people would. There, is it in the departure lounge production crew? Tell me.
Pardon?
All right. So I'm about to give it to this lady because it has to be in the departure lounge. Not many people would probably know that. But I'll give it to her indeed. Those are the ones. Eagle Hall, Oystons, Spikestown, Fairchild Street, My Lord's Hill, Wildy, Airport and Fairview. Those are the ones open 7 to 3 on Sundays, the locations of Crumbs Bakery. Thank you, ma'am. Stay right there on the phone. We'll take more details from you. And you are a winner in today's Crumbs question of the day. Let's take a break, and when we come back, there's more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Seventeen past 7 o'clock now. Let's meet the magic as she makes it from home. The magic behind Bespoke Studios. Her name is Carla Nichols. Good morning to you, Carla.
Good morning, Pearson. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. Bespoke Studios. Now, when you hear the word bespoke, you're thinking it's so selective, it's so small, it's so intimate, it's very personal, and it's just great. Tell me the magic behind the name Bespoke Studio for you.
So bespoke means custom made or made to order, and that's really what I'm trying to do with my line of products. I want to be able to make home decor that is made especially for the customer's taste and is unique and you can't find anywhere else.
How did you get here to be operating Bespoke Studios?
Well, I learned how to make models of buildings in architecture school when I was in university. And I took those techniques on to create objects and do industrial design. But I always was fascinated by objects and the people who use them. So I tried to make objects that I would want to use myself, and I think that would resonate with others.
And so far, so good?
Yes, so far so good. I've gotten a lot of support from people and a lot of well wishes and encouragement. So I'm very happy with the outreach so far.
That's fantastic. Now, you look at wood and you see something magical in it. You see something that you can make from it. And I'm told that you've been making like the silver dollar coasters and a whole host of things. Talk us through the process and how your process is so different from the other wood carvings and craft that we would see.
Well, I use a lot of cutting edge modern techniques. First, I design things on my computer. Well, I start by hand, I sketch things out, then I translate it onto the computer, and then I use digital fabrication techniques, specifically laser cutting, to produce my items. And then I assemble and finish them by hand.
Oh, so it's a one-woman process?
Yes, it's a one-woman process.
Oh, that's great. And because it's bespoke, it's custom made, and so anyone can contact you and say, I'd like to have whatever made, and you are able to laser do it for me.
Yes, that is correct.
I'd love to see some of your work, to see what you've been able to do. Describe for me what we're looking at here.
We are looking at an exaggerated topographic map of Barbados. So I use the contour lines from a map, and I drew out lines in intervals of height, and then I cut them out in layers and assembled them on top of each other to make a relief for the wall.
All right, so this pretty much would have shown the gradient of Barbados over the period of time in the different spaces as well. And these are the silver dollar coasters. Is this a real big seller, this one?
Yes, it is my best seller so far.
This is great.
Yes, people seem to really like it.
Of course, we love things about money, and we love things about ourselves as well. And oh, this is brilliant. Look at this. This must have been a lot of work.
Yes, that's called a Monstera leaf mirror, and there's about 75 pieces on there.
And how long did it take you to craft this one and put it all together?
From design to production, it took me about 2 weeks.
Okay, but if you want it, you can do it. Where is it here? Where is it?
Yes.
Is it in a chandelier here now?
Yes, that's the chandelier, and that's called a coral lampshade, and it's made of about 60 pieces of interlocking wood.
Wow.
And it casts beautiful shadows.
You are doing some really great work. This is really, really clever. My goodness, and this one is looking at it from a different perspective?
That's the bushel lampshade. That one is made up of leaves, but it also casts beautiful shadows, and it's made of wood, and you can get them in different stains, different sizes. I can do site visits to see what will work best in the space.
So where do you source this wood that you're working with?
2 sources. Right now, I get some from local hardware stores, and for the can't find here, I source it from Canada.
And because it's bespoke, obviously it's just with you. You're not necessarily mass produced and put out somewhere.
No, I tend to make things to order. I don't tend to keep things on hand because I don't know what people want. I like when people reach out to me and want something unique. I of course have things, a catalog of things that I've already created, but my things tend to be bespoke.
Indeed. And so for anyone watching today who wants to own a piece of your work, how can they contact you?
They can contact me by messaging me on Instagram at Bespoke Barbados or messaging me on WhatsApp 236-4442.
236-4442. 236-4442. How long have you been doing this now, though, Carla?
About 2 years.
You started to study architecture, and here it is now. The Bespoke Studio is taking up a lot of what you've learned. What else have you learned about yourself in the process to being the kind of businesswoman you are now?
I learned that I am pretty resilient, and I learned that I am perseverant. Being a business owner has brought out parts of me that I didn't know I had. It's very challenging, but very rewarding at the same time. It's very good to be able to come up with an idea and then hold it in your hands. So.
And so the technology stuck for just a while. But her name is Carla Nichols. She's an industrial designer and an artist and the owner of Bespoke Studios. You can find her on Instagram, Bespoke Barbados. Carla, you're back? Good, good. We getting an audio issue there. Just turn the camera, make sure that your audio is working for me. Remember, you can call Carla. There we are. Was that your mother who just brought the fan for you?
Yes. That's my grandma's nurse, actually. That's my grandma's nurse.
I can see everything. Trust me, my eyes are very sharp. So what's been the support of your family to you in this effort?
My mom has been very supportive. She helped me with my education. She's been there from the beginning, supporting me and encouraging me as my business journey has gone along. And I've had very supportive friends and family who've shared my pieces, who've supported me from the beginning. And of course, just strangers and well-wishers who have been very supportive.
Yes. I want to be supportive of you as well. I want to encourage all Barbadians to be supportive of Carla Nichols and Bespoke Studios. Remember, you can find her, Bespoke Barbados, on Instagram or call today. Call Carla, 236-4442. 236-4442 and have them visit, have that consultation and have those pieces crafted for just the right spots in your house to make and to enhance your decor. Carla, thank you so much for joining us. You're quite an inspiration. Thank you, and I wish you all the best with Bespoke Studios.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a great experience.
Thank you so much, Carla. Right, 25 minutes after the hour, taking a break, and we're coming back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
All right, we're looking forward to the 2022 edition of Lux Caribbean, Lux Carnival Escape Weekend. And so joining us this morning to talk a little bit more about Lux Carnival and what they represent is Mr. Turnup, who is the International Affairs Coordinator with Lux Carnival. Good morning to you, Mr. Turnup.
Morning, morning. How you doing?
I'm well. You're the one in the middle, Mr. Turnup. With you there also is your resident DJ, DJ Wickham, and your logistics production specialist, Dwayne Omar. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Good morning indeed.
Morning.
Lux Carnival. To say the word carnival in a pandemic right now with all these restrictions just seems like a weird word. So tell me about Lux Carnival, though.
So, Lux Carnival, we are a prestige international, I'm going to say, carnival experience. We focus solely on carnival. However, we provide the entertainment experience that people across the world can relate to, regardless of your demographic, your nationality, or your heritage. We provide vibes, we provide memorable moments, and most importantly, we bring the turntastic experience that you can't replicate anywhere else.
You're quite right. And so the energy behind that is what we're talking about today, because you're going to be having the Escape Weekend. What's that about?
So Escape Weekend taking place, God willing, next year, April 2022. It is a weekend for you to go on vacation, staycation, just a chance for you to experience the beautiful country of Barbados and all that it has to offer, while we put together and curate 3 different events that all represent the Lux brand.
And those events are, as we just saw there, the Spring Break, there's Skylark, the Lux Regatta. So these are all titles to different events on that weekend next year. So it's going to be quite an experience for anyone who wants to travel into Barbados for this Escape Weekend. Am I reading you correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
So who are you targeting?
So our target audience right now are college students going all the way up to the middle class of 30. We have something for everybody. If this is your first time going to Barbados, come on down. This is your chance to get on board. If this is your, you just like to travel, you want to add another stamp to your passport, grab your friends, get your relatives, come on down. If this is someplace you just want to go and, just get away from work, your family, come. We have something for you too.
So in what markets have you been telling the story of Lux Carnival and getting people involved and turned up so they can also turn up, Mr. Turnup?
I'll answer this regard. As a logistics specialist, we've been targeting, we have persons coming as far as South Korea, though they've already bought their tickets already. Our footprint is here in Canada and the US. We have persons coming out of we're talking as far as Australia as well too. So we're actually pushing our product into the international arena with no language barriers whatsoever. So we're actually targeting a wide section of the world to showcase the best of food and beverage vibes, as Mr. Turnup said, to experience the best of Barbados. For example, Skylark is going to be facilitated at Bushy Park. The regatta is going to be on the high seas and on the coast of Barbados. And Soca's Fair is going to be on the beachfront of beautiful Barbados as well. So it's all about showcasing the best and the best of Barbados.
Is there a capacity limit set, or is it open to whatever numbers of people who want to come?
Well, the thing about it is that we're going through, because we're looking at what the pandemic is shaping up for us. So at this point in time, we're keeping a cap on a bandwidth of numbers, and we're actually creating an event bubble as well to make sure that we do the protocols and the right things that the government will dictate. So we're actually creating an event bubble as well too, creating certain protocols that participants would have to go through before they actually take part in the event on island. So we will be implementing certain protocols to mirror what the government of Barbados Ministry of Health is requiring for the event.
So anyone who wants to sign up for this Lux Carnival weekend, then talk to me about getting into the bubble. How can they do so? Where can they find the information to be able to make sure that they're doing the right thing to have this wonderful experience?
So I'll take this one. In order to enjoy the experience of Lux Carnival's Escape Weekend, basically you could go to www.luxcarnival.com. Right as soon as you get on the website, you scroll down, you would see the information to purchase tickets. There are 3 packages available. I mean, we recommend the Prestige package. That Prestige package essentially grants you VIP access to all 3 of those events. The other 2 packages are the Prestige and the Boutique packages. You could find information for those ones as well on the website and how you can purchase them. There's also a payment plan. If you want to start your purchase right now, you could do, I believe it's a 4-tiered payment plan. That way you don't have to pay for the entire package in one go. You could go piece by piece. And the cost for the Prestige package is $500 US. And those are all-inclusive VIP access to all 3 events.
Mm-hmm. And all of that you can find online. Now, you're the DJ, you're the man who helps to up the vibe. So talk to us a little bit about the experience that we can hear coming from when you turn those turntables. Talk to us about that vibe.
Well, the Lux experience when it comes to music is gonna be very diverse, especially when it comes to all 3 events. We have a very diverse cast of DJs as well, which I am very proud to be part of. We have DJ Gel coming from Miami. We have DJ Young G, I believe based in New York. We have, he's a Vinci. And then we have DJ Sese, also in New York. And last but not least, we have DJ Revs. She's Canadian, but she was born in Barbados, similar to myself. And so it's gonna be, in terms of the vibe, you could expect Skylark, I would say, it's gonna be I would say a cultural vibe. Mm-hmm. So you'll get a diverse blend of music. You could expect a lot of soca, but you could expect some dancehall, a little bit of Afrobeat, some Latin music. You could get a very diverse vibe there. Lux Regatta, you're looking at something more upscale. But again, the vibe is gonna be diverse. And Soca Spirit to cap off the end of the weekend, you could expect, as Soca Spirit says, straight soca music, but just good vibes.
All right. So you've got to start booking now, folks. Really start booking. All of you all over the world watching, come spring into Barbados for Spring Break 2022 by going to luxcarnival.com. Luxcarnival.com, Lux. All the information is right there at the bottom of your screen. Luxcarnival.com, or you can go onto Instagram or Facebook to Lux Carnival, yes, at the bottom of the screen, or on email vibes@luxcarnival.com. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. I really want to encourage only the very best with this. I mean, let's hope that all other negative things go away so that people can have a really grand time next year for spring break as well. Yeah, man. Amen on that one. So, Mr. Turnup, thank you. Thank you to DJ Wickham and Dwayne Omar with Lux Carnival Caribbean. We're looking forward to the bigger experience next year, but we're booking now. All the best going forward.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Morning Barbados is coming back with a Bajan affair after this break.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
So we're going all the way to Toronto, Canada to meet Joan Wilkinson, who is a blogger, who is a collector, and who's just up the gap. Good morning to Joan Wilkinson.
Good morning. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you so much for asking. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
I love the name of your blog, Up the Gap. It is so Beijing. Where are you going? We're going up the gap. And so here you are now in Toronto, Canada. You've been there for a little while, Joan. How is it for you?
Yes, longer than I've lived in Barbados, yes.
Yeah. How has it been?
Great, challenges, but that's okay.
That's right. And so you write about a lot of those things on your blog as well? The challenges, the things you overcome and so forth?
No, I deal mainly with Barbados, growing up. It's like kind of a teaching tool. Myself and my sisters have done a couple of blogs on how to make mauby, sugar cakes, bakes. So it's like a teaching tool and kind of, what's the word? Celebrating our achievements and our culture.
Right. But why are you doing this? Why? I mean, you've been living there now since 1976. You could have adopted the Canadian thing and forget about Barbados, but you've instead said, no, I'm going to blog about this, about growing up in Barbados, how to do the things that are us. Why are you doing this?
Because I guess I'm still 100% Barbadian, and I find like our stories are not told. So I just figure, go straight to the horse's mouth and tell the stories. There were so many things we were ashamed of growing up. Like I remember taking bakes to school one year, and I attended the Alling school. So, I took these bakes and went way out on the pasture because I was so ashamed of bakes. But now, I celebrate bakes. I think that episode got like over 7,000 hits.
Wow.
Right? And I got a lot of comments on it. So it's celebrating my childhood, my grandparents, and life in Barbados back then.
That is beautiful. I'm also told a part of what you love to do is to collect all sorts of things. I'm not going to call you the junk lady.
I call it my Up the Gap Museum.
Gap Museum. So what's in the Up the Gap Museum? What's in there?
Oh, I have like a scale pan from way back in the day. My grandparents sold potatoes and, bananas and all that. So one year a friend and I were in one of the upscale malls, and they had a display, and in this display was like the scale pan and the scale and the weights that my grandparents would use. Vibrant red, brand new. And there was the home, sweet home lampshade, shining bright like a diamond. And I found that it was tearing up, and I think from that moment, the need to create to collect these things just started.
Look at that, the
so
flick
I
can.
just started collecting stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, because there are generations of people who do not have a clue as to what these things look like. The coal pot and the juking board with the blue soap, outside by the pipe, home sweet home lamps, which are iconic, and then the tin tops that we would have used obviously to weigh our tea, as we call it, cool it, and to measure items as well.
Measure the grease and all that.
People still use candle grease.
My local dispensary here.
Candle grease, look at that, look.
Yes.
That is wonderful. This is beautiful. You're doing a great thing. And so people are beginning to experience the way we are and the way we grew up as well. And what are their responses when they see it?
Oh, great. We used to have this upscale occasion event called Barbados Ball. It was started by Kay McConney.
Yes.
And one year I had the opportunity to display some of this stuff, myself and another lady who has a great collection. And I mean, it generated so much interest.
Wow.
Especially from the elders, they were so amazed. And sometimes in the past I've displayed at my church. Well, not my church, but the church I attended.
Right.
And it generated a lot of interest, This top was made by my dad. So, some of the stuff it's kind of homemade
That
as
is
well.
sweet. You know, I'm trying now even to remember how to use it, and even though I would have played with it at some point,
and let it rip.
I let it
we used to have
spin.
competitions to see who could sleep the longest. You know,
Yes.
so yeah.
You know, I could well imagine the conversations that would flow from when one sees these items and be able to tell the story behind the item. Like you just saw the top, my dad. It went right back to your father, and that we live in that childhood experience. This must be glorious. Right? I can see by the smile on your face, this is something you enjoy.
Yes, I do. I come to Barbados, and myself and my sisters go on a hunting trip. Let's see what we can find from my collection. Yes.
You know, there used to be a time when you would walk and you would see all sorts of broken the plates, ceramic plates. You remember those days?
Yes.
But you don't seem to see that anymore.
No.
I think
we've gotten away from that stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also wish you could find a way to preserve clammy cherry. Do you know what is clammy cherry?
Oh yes, we had a massive clammy cherry tree in our backyard. Well, it was my grandfather's house and my great aunt. And I'm working on a book of poetry to be published next year.
Yes.
And in this book, I talk about that clammy cherry tree. It was massive.
Wow.
We had black ants, red ants that lived in that tree. And every time you try to get a clammy cherry, you know, those ants would just attack you. Yes.
I was looking at your wall art there for a moment, and that's a kite. Oh, I love it. Traditional Bajan kite made. Was that kite made from the cane, or was it made from just regular pieces of wood?
Regular pieces of wood. This was made in Toronto, but I have smaller ones that I actually brought from Barbados with me on. You know, when flying was a lot more, wasn't as complicated. I brought up a lot of this stuff from Barbados years and years ago. Yes.
Do you remember the sweet lime bush? No, you're too young. Sweet lime.
Yeah.
It's a nice little bright little bud, and it's like a fruit. And you used to use it, and you squeeze it. You used to put it on your nails. The girls used to put it on their nails.
Of course. I'm from the country. I'm from St. Joseph. So
you are?
Yeah.
I'm from St. Lucie. And I'm from St. Lucie, so you know I know. This is so wonderful talking to you, really, Joel. You are such a wonderful Barbadian. So, being Barbadian in Toronto, Canada, I mean, and there are lots of Bajans who go to Toronto to begin with. How difficult or easy is it for you to find somebody who sounds like you, who looks like you, who understands you?
Very easy. The church, I came here in 76, and the church I attended at that time, I still attend that church. I think I would say 98% of the congregants were Barbadians.
Nice.
Yes, and it's still that way. The church is not as big as before, but most of the attendees are Barbadians. Most of my friends are Barbadians. Myself and my sisters, you know, we have a very tight-knit relationship. So, yeah, everything I do is still basically Barbadian. I celebrate Canada, but, you know, a lot of the stuff I do is still Barbadian.
Do you flip between the Canadian accent and the Bajan accent?
No, at first I tried desperately to get rid of my Bajan accent. But then I guess I decided you can divorce me, but I'm not divorcing you.
I'm not leaving you.
Most of the times, by the time I say hello, it's like, are you a Barbadian? Are you a Barbadian? So people can identify my accent right away, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it now.
I agree with that completely. So obviously, because Canadians are often coming to Barbados, so they know us well. I don't have to ask you about that at all. They get it right away, who we are as Barbadians. Being there in Canada and looking on to us in Barbados, what's your view now of Barbados that you wish that that Barbadians who live here will get to understand about who we are? You understand me?
To be proud of our culture, you know, to celebrate it. I think we grew up being ashamed of so many things. You know, we thought we were poor. But again, in my book of poetry, I'm talking about, you know, the gifts we were given, the sun, the sky, the sea, you know, gifts that will be there forever. So I would love people to celebrate our culture or our history and be proud of who we are. You know?
I couldn't say that better. Do you still cook Bajan?
Oh yes, definitely. Every Sunday, it's rice and peas. On any given Saturday, I'll get up and make bakes, and it could be for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I always have Mauby bark in the house, a glass of Mauby. So I still live traditionally Bajan, really.
I love it. This is so beautiful. You make me so proud of the fact that you are unapologetically Bajan, and that for us it feels as if you just live up the gap.
Yes, just up the gap, and I bring a lot of people along with me.
So we can read your blog Up the Gap on the blog sphere, or we can come check you on Facebook as well, I believe, Up the Gap.
Yes, and I also have a website my kids created, upthegap.com. So there's a lot of stuff out there.
All right, you're doing really great work, Joan Wilkinson, flying the flag proudly of Barbados, representing who we are and helping us to recollect the memories of who we've been so we better understand who we are to become as well. And so I'm looking forward one day, hopefully, to meeting you in person, should it be God's will as well.
I'm always in Barbados, so one day I'll drop in and say hi.
Drop in. I practically live here, so drop in. That'll be fantastic.
Yes, okay.
Thank you so much for joining us, Joan Wilkinson from Toronto,
Canada.
Thank
you for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome indeed.
Thank you.
It makes you feel proud to be a Barbadian. When you see other Barbadians elsewhere being Barbadian, then it reminds you of so much that we have to be thankful for and so much of which we can be proud as well. So great to connect with them afar. We're coming back after this with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Well, since 2009, at least one day a year, Future Centre Trust have been putting aside one day a year when all of us is encouraged to be a part of the cleanup campaign. And so that one day of the year this year would have been tomorrow, but it's now postponed. And we're joined this morning by Anne Harding, who is the project manager of Cleanup Barbados, along with Abigail Sandiford, the project assistant. Good morning, both of you ladies.
Hi, Pearson.
Good morning.
Good, thank you again for joining us. It would have been tomorrow, Anne, but you know, circumstances,
It's really sad. We were sad to have to postpone, but we do have a new date. It's on the 5th of February, 2022. So Clean Up Barbados 2021 is on the 5th of February, 2022.
Well, that's great. That's the birthday. That's the birthday of my godsons. Yes, my godson's birthday.
Oh, you remember that.
So maybe I should get them to come join us in the cleanup campaign as well.
Absolutely, and that's one of the benefits of having to postpone. I mean, the reason, of course, why we had to postpone was because of the rapid rise in the COVID cases, and it just got a bit scary, to be honest. It still is a bit scary, and we hope that everybody tries really, really hard to stay safe, so we have it totally under control by Christmas, right?
So here we are now. We're postponed until February next year, but we're still looking for volunteers. There's still a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of ways that we can all still lend our assistance to this. So Miss Abigail, there are lots of young people like yourself who we believe ought to step up to the cause and also volunteer to be a part of this, aren't there?
That's true. I actually came onto this, I only came to know the Future Centre Trust through the University of the West Indies. I'm doing this as a part of the Give Back program. So if I'm doing it, I don't see why others can't do it as well. Others are free to join and free to participate and register, and they're welcome.
How has been the experience for you joining with Anne and the team at Future Centre Trust as part of this initiative?
It has been amazing. Anne has been very accommodating. She's been very patient with me. She gave me the duty of contacting the donors and asking for various businesses for donations. And in light of the postponement, I that even though it is, as she said, a scary experience, we can use this to still encourage and persuade more people. We can contact a longer list, and it gives us time, and it gives us like a higher advantage.
So what do you
I
say?
believe we can use it to our advantage.
Yeah. What do you say, Abigail, to anyone who has the wherewithal to be able to contribute and you're asking for donations? What would you say to them today when you call? What would you want them to do?
Well, I would call and I would ask first if they are willing, just to make sure. And then I would ask Then I would ask who it is that I would have to speak to in regards to donations, and they would direct me to that person. And then I would ask, well, if it's hardware, would you like to contribute a wheelbarrow, a shovel? We need hand sanitizer, gloves, garbage bags, stuff like that. Anything that they think would be necessary or useful, they're also willing to
contribute, to donate. And
yes.
that kind of assistance, and is so critical to the effort. Let's talk about its value, and let's remind people of what this effort about Clean Up Barbados is really seeking to achieve.
Yes, it's really amazing, Pearson, how willing the Barbadian companies are to actually help us out. They just really are great. And as Abigail said last time, that it's an amazing experience calling them and talking to them. And that's the thing I had to do when we had to postpone, was to call them and say, did you get my email? Do you know there's a new date? And they all said, well, just call me back closer to the date. So all the people that Abigail had lined up, they're still right behind it. And so we still have the great support. And it will happen. And another thing too, Pearson, is that we're using the time to actually form some new alliances. And as we did last year, we had a follow-on project last year, and that ended up with bins being, Eco Rebels, beautiful bins being put around several communities, including Licorice Village. And so we're looking at doing more things this year in collaboration with other NGOs and other civil societies. And another thing that we're using the time for is, we had to immediately change tack. If I can't be on TV encouraging 1,000 people to come out as just with a rake and a bucket and just tidy up around the bus stop. And I do that in my own local community. And if people do it, they can send images to Clean Up Barbados on our Facebook page. They can do a message to us and send us the images of the good work that they've done. And, just one individual we can't pick up the 53,000 pounds like we did last year at Clean Up Barbados, but we'll get to that on the 5th of February. In the meantime, people can go out, and just do what they can in their local community, and it does make a big difference to people's mental states. I think right now, you had someone on earlier, and CBC's been talking about mental health, and I think that with the pandemic, that's one of the things that we've become more conscious of. And we need to realize just about the difference between how we feel when we're in a situation where we're surrounded by litter versus being surrounded by the beauty of Barbados. And it does make a huge difference. I know that's the main reward that the cleanup groups do get, is after they've cleaned up. They go out and they see a mess and they're like, but then they clean it up and then they can just smile, and they're so happy to see it so beautiful. So there's a big benefit to going out and cleaning up, and that you get to now live in a clean environment.
We do. We'll continue cleaning up our environment. We're continuing to take on our communities, and in doing so, snap those shots and send it up to Clean Up Barbados. Of course, send all so we can see and celebrate what you're doing as well. But we're still asking you not to grow tired in this. Still continue to volunteer. Volunteer as an individual, volunteer as a family, volunteer as a church group, or any group of people, a business house as well. All of the employees can decide, we're going to come forward because we want to be a part of this effort to clean up Barbados. Now postponed to the 5th of February next year, if it be God's will. And we want to encourage you to do so. So how can people put themselves forward as volunteers to be a part of this effort?
Pearson, we had to close the registrations just temporarily. We'll have to update our website. And that'll happen soon. So what they should do in the meantime, please follow us on Facebook. Because if you follow us on Facebook, you'll be notified when the registrations do open. And you'll get a lot of other good information about things that good people are doing. You just showed some pictures of that someone took of a beach, 2 beaches that they cleaned while they were on holiday.
Nice,
You know?
nice. It's great. It's getting through piece by piece, bit by bit. It's beginning to work. Anne Harding, who's the project manager of Clean Up Barbados, and you, Abigail Sandifer, thank you as project assistant coming by and lending your assistance as well. Your effort and energy is not unnoticed. Thank you so much, ladies, and we encourage people to be a part of it. Thank you. All right. Now, before we go, I want to let you know that Betty Richards Downey called. Yep, I was talking about the sweet lime trees. I'm telling you, she said to us that her grandfather had a sweet lime hedge. And let me tell you, those prickles are something else. And she used to use that sweet lime to grow her fingernails. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, find out about it today. You'll see, as a child growing up, it was part of what we experienced. Some people used to eat it. Some people used to use it in that kind of way. Quickly, before we go, a couple of things to remind you of. This evening, I think it is, we're going to be showing you again another one of those in association with the Ministry of Youth, those sessions looking at suicide. And we want your participation in it. And tomorrow, a very special edition of the Stand Home Party right here on TV8. I gotta go. It's the weekend. Enjoy it. We do look forward, should it be God's will, joining you on Monday again. Do enjoy, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you.